So welcome everybody. I hope we have a few more stragglers come in here before we get too much further. But you know, as part of these conversations with the president, I want to, you know, either every time or every other time, feature some program areas that people haven't heard about. So today we're going to hear from John and Colleen about the math redesign project. If you went to the board meeting, you may have already seen it, but most of you probably didn't. But I also want to start all of our conversations with a focus on student success. That's why we're here. Everything that we do at the college should be focused on student success and meeting our community's needs. And so I just want to remind everybody, we did talk about it at convocation, but our graduation rate last year was 16%. That's a 45% increase over the year before. It's the best we've ever had as a college. Probably not where we really want to be, but it's based upon the IPEDS data. So it's based upon that cohort of first-time full-time students who started at Santa Fe Community College in the fall of 2012. We know that we have a much greater percentage if you look at 4 years and 5 years, because so many of our students who start full-time end up having to go part-time, or because of the number of developmental courses, it takes them a little longer to even get into the sequence. Got a lot of initiatives on campus related to both recruitment, retention, completion, and so those are some of the things we want to feature as we go through this year, and always as we meet and talk. We need to focus on those things. Do want to remind everybody, if you went to the board meeting yesterday, enrollments this semester are down about 10%. That's the student credit hours. We budgeted for a 10% cut or decrease in student enrollments. The trend nationally, it's more of a trend, unfortunately, in New Mexico for some reason than in other locations. But most of the institutions in New Mexico are down greater than 10%. I think when it's all said and done, because we have not finished registering all the dual credit students, we still have some late starting short classes, 8-week classes, and some short classes. I think we will be down, but I think it may be better, less than the 10%. If it's 10% or better or less, then we're still in good shape from a budget standpoint. But we have to think about what we're doing. You know, the changing demographics in New Mexico and especially in Santa Fe are impacting us. We've got a much greater older population, and actually we've had a net loss in population in New Mexico. I think one of the things with the new data that we're doing on our enrollments is the fact that, where is that number? 19% of our credit students are over the age of 61. 19% of the credit students this fall are over the age of 61. Matches the demographics in our community. But it also has, you know, pretty big implications on our programs, because many of those are lifelong learners, people coming to take advantage of the fitness center, taking advantage of woodworking or ceramics or some of the other programs that are real popular. But that's something we're going to have to look at. A couple of good things that I've noticed in the statistics, because we're breaking it down differently now, is that 61% of the degree-seeking students registered for this fall are returning students. So that means they were enrolled in the spring. 10% are new. That may be a little bit low. Even of the non-degree seeking students, 57% of those are continuing students, which means they were here in the spring. And by walking around campus, and even by looking in here almost, 61% of our students are female. So also part of the changing demographics. So that's just a couple of things in that area. Just to give you a quick update, the governing board did meet last night. We had some great presentations on the library. Thank you, Peg. On the testing center by Ellen. I don't see if you see her in here. The tutoring center with Chris, and disability services with Vaughn. So it was great information that was provided to the board and to the public, and so I appreciate that. Two policies did get approved last night. It was the final reading for the board financial oversight policy and the employee code of conduct policy. So they are now in effect. They will get posted on JAC hopefully this week. And then there were 4 other policies that many of you have probably looked at because of the shared governance approach that did have their first reading. Based upon work at both the work session and discussions at the board meeting, there are some minor language updates that are being done to some of those policies before they have their final reading next month. I do want to remind everybody that we're really trying to ramp up our shared governance process. So the Shared Governance Council had its first meeting. We're going to meet twice a month, except for January and December. And so we're meeting on the first and third Fridays from 2 to 3:30, I think is the right time. And we're going to try not to focus just on policy. So one of the things I did ask the Governance Council to take back to the various governance groups is I do want some feedback on budget priorities for next fiscal year. And I need that back by early December. It doesn't have to be specific programs. It could be at a high level, but if we had new dollars, where would you put it? If we want to reallocate some of our existing dollars, where would you put it? I want to get feedback from faculty and staff senate on those situations. And I've also asked them to look at the organizational structure of the college. If we were starting over, assume there was nobody here, okay? How would you organize the college? You know, how many VPs would we have? How many deans would we have? How many directors would we have? Can't jump to whatever. If we come up with a new model that we want to go to, then we'll have to figure out how we're going to get there. You know, some of it we could get through it through a restructuring. Some of it we may just decide, okay, we'll get there as we have attrition, because people do leave and people retire, people resign and move on. And so, but I'd like to get the feedback from the organization through the shared governance groups on what that might look like. A couple of campus news items that you may not all be aware of. The TRIO grant did get refunded for another 5 years, so we have $230,000 per year for that grant. The Youth Build, we're in our second grant cycle for Youth Build. They're recruiting right now for some more cohorts, but if anybody's interested, at 5:30 tonight they're having an open house for the house that they built on campus and moved, and they've been finishing it up over on Avenida Chaparral, right by Wrigley Park, and that's at 5:30 tonight, if anybody wants to go over there. If you go there, it's the first house on Avenida Chaparral. Can't miss it. We have our third annual Harvest Festival next week. It's on Tuesday from 10 to 2. We've been doing a lot of things here to promote STEM education and programs, and Phyllis Baca and a lot of people did a great job last weekend. We had an Expanding Your Horizons event here with over 150, I think they said over 180 8th grade girls from throughout northern New Mexico, and they didn't allow the parents to go with them to any of the workshops, so they went to workshops just with female role models in things as nuclear physics apparently was one of the popular ones, and the person was energetic and inspired a few people. And then this Saturday, there's another Future in STEM event where we're bringing in students from mostly colleges, but some high schools from around the state and faculty. And many of them are presenting poster sessions and talking about doing research and doing research projects. And I think we have about 30 students from SFCC that are presenting posters. And some are from the nursing program, which is really is a STEM-H program. Some are from the biofuels program. There's a variety of programs here. And then college night is tonight over in the Fitness Education Center. So there'll be lots of four-year universities with tables set up, and a lot of high school students and their parents will be on campus tonight. So you may want to make sure you get out of here before the traffic jam starts, because it got bad last year. I remember that one. In terms of finances and budgets, the budget process for FY17, which is the next budget cycle, is really going to kick off in December. It really starts with getting the feedback on those budget priorities. This week at the Finance Committee meeting of the board, we set up sort of a timetable of processes to go through that culminates with the board has to approve the budget in April, and it has to be submitted to the Higher Education Department on May 1st or before May 1st. So we'll get there. I don't anticipate a whole lot of new dollars. Tuition revenues, you know, if enrollment keeps going down, we'll go down. Our mill levy is looking pretty good from the county because we're beginning to see some growth in the county. A lot of new house sales, and remember for commercial property, we're at a 3 mil levy for operational purposes. So we get 3 mills from all commercial properties. For residential, if there's a new sale, we get 3 mills. But if somebody's lived there for a long time, we have this yield control mechanism that's in place. And so we're at about 2.75, I believe, of actual receipts. So, you know, the more houses that sell to new buyers, we keep getting closer to 3 mills. And every mill brings us about $6 million. So That's one of the places we might see new dollars over the next few years if the economy continues to hold. We're certainly in a better cash position than we were at this point last year. We're still don't have enough cash. We did not have a cash at the end of last June 30th to take us all the way to December when we get that big influx of the property tax money. Just to remind everybody, we get about 2/3 of our property tax revenues in December and January, and 1/3 in June, and that's got to carry us all the way to December. And that's 50% of our revenues for the college. So we do have the Valley of Death. If you were at Convocation, you saw the little chart. At the end of November and early December, if we didn't manage it right, we would not have enough cash to pay all of our bills. We know how to manage it right. We know which bills we can be a little slow on, and it's not payroll. But we can be a little slow on some bills. And so I am very confident that this year we have a plan in place. And although it is going to be tight, we will sail right through. And I don't think we'll even have to be slow on very many of our bills, but we know who will let us do that. So anyway. Before we get John and Colleen up, I want to talk a little bit about performance evaluations. We did do a pilot project over the summer. I think there was at least 3 areas, Opie, CAT, and the fitness center. There may have been one other where we piloted the WAC, piloted the process, got some good feedback, so we kind of streamlined it a little bit. It's still not exactly where we want it to be, but we're going to roll it out this year. And so the expectation is that every full-time faculty and every regular staff member will have an evaluation conducted this year. Faculty evaluations are different from staff evaluations because there is a whole EQIP action team looking at that. But the expectation is that we will do an evaluation for everybody this year. So it may be a little busy in the spring for that.
By this year, you mean?
This fiscal year. So by June 30th for staff and by the May for faculty, I guess. There are some faculty that are here year-round, so we have a little leeway there. But we do want to make sure that every regular employee, we don't have to evaluate all the part-time employees, some will be. Every temporary employee, if they're full-time or could have been here a while, should get evaluated. Every probationary employee should be evaluated probably twice during their probationary period, at least. And so we're going to get that process up and going and get back onto a regular cycle there. So before I take some questions, I'm going to let, who's going to start? John, Colleen?
I'll be jumping back and forth here. You can do that? It may work. Let's see if the... Oh, it works. Okay. I'm going to skip the updates portion, and we're going to focus on the math redesign. The bit is, mathematics never changes, right? It never changes. 1 + 1 is 2, and it's been there for... Never changes. Mathematics education never changes, right? Wrong. Okay. That's the wrong part of this. I'm old enough to know when new math is really old now, and then they changed from new math to the next type of mathematics. So the education process has changed. These changes that we're going to be talking about in the redesign do have a background in new research, new programs, and one of the basis is just the redesign efforts. Columbia University is one of the places where it has happened, but it's happening pretty much across the nation. And what they're trying to do is trying to get the problem with developmental studies has actually grown so to the point where it's a hindrance rather than a help in some cases. So what they try to do is, well, let's try to accelerate the entry into the college level programs. So somehow get through the developmental as quick as possible. So minimize the time required to get college ready. One of the things that we're really working on is make sure we have the instruction basically contextualized. Basically, memorization of facts are not the best way to go about things. It's basically if you can do it within the context of a discipline, it's actually a better way of doing it. So there's been a lot of effort by the team to actually do that. Then integrate student support with the instruction, and some of the support can be computer tech support, the tutoring. We have a couple programs that Colleen will talk about that this has a basis for some of what we're doing. And then again, leveraging the technology. It's not that the technology is going to take over things, but the technology can support some of the classroom instruction. Then the other one that is actually a little bit closer to what we're doing right now is actually the pathways, multiple pathways. We've actually started to go down that route, but now there's a lot of the states have gone the same route, and let's see, the Dana Center from Texas, basically talking about looking at not everyone's going to take the algebra-based STEM route. We are going to have a lot of people where statistics is the best end class, and then we have another group of people where actually neither of those even fit, and it's more, tell me what the...
We call it quantitative literacy or quantitative studies, yeah.
Yeah, but it's basically, that's probably the place where the mathematics will grow most for our students. The statistics will grow also. The health field is using that quite a bit. And what will shrink and actually get to a right size will be the algebra-based. It'll get to a right size to focus on those STEM students. One of the things that you should know that New Mexico Pathways has started. Actually, Robert and Colleen on October 2nd will be presenting, giving a summary of what they've done so far for the community college. But New Mexico itself is trying to get to that point where we look at the pathways and use some of the redesign efforts to help us out. Okay, and now, why are we doing this? It's not a shot in the dark. It is based on data, and that's why we have people from OPI here. But the idea is we can take a look at statistics, and some of the statistics we used to only look at when we used in isolation were not exactly the appropriate ones. We can take a look at productive grade rate, success rates in classes, and they can look really good. But then if you take a look, well, how did the people do in the next level course? That can still look really good. Approximately 70% are succeeding in a course. Those who succeed in a course and go to the next course, approximately 76% of those students are succeeding. So those are good things. But what has happened with the number of courses we have is we lose not only those who don't succeed, but we lose those who also don't go on to the next course. So it gets to the point, and this was some really good data. If someone starts off at Math 100, you're only going to get 15 are going to meet a graduation required for mathematics. You only get 24% if they start off at 101. Even at 102, it's only 35%, and even at 109, only 40% really make it into through a college level class. And that's kind of sad, but it's still better than some of the other colleges are doing. But it's still, you're losing a whole bunch of people as you go through the number of courses you have to take. And that kind of gets us to, I think, the goals. And see.
So I think that last slide was an important one for us, thinking about students going through the whole pathway. And nationwide data is even grimmer than what you saw on the slide that we just looked at. So our next question was, well, what are we going to do instead? And there's been a lot of discussion about acceleration, and we are doing some of that. But I think one of the most important things that we asked ourselves was, well, what do students really need to know? We don't need to teach them and we don't need to go back and look at everything that they've ever thought about maybe needing to learn in mathematics. We're like, okay, here we are now. What do they need to know? And so as we're talking about accelerating progress, we're really looking at each of the classes and going, well, what are the objectives? Do they need to know this? Is this really important? And then focusing in on what we thought was really important. Also, increasing student success. We know we have to have high productive grade rates in each class. We have to keep them engaged, and we have to keep them moving through the process. Increasing interaction in the classroom. And this is something that many of the folks in the department have always been very interested in, but we're focusing more and more on that. What can we do to get students to do as much mathematics in the math classroom as they possibly can? So, like many things, you don't learn it by watching someone else do it. You can learn it by doing it yourself. So everything that we can do to get them active in the classroom, we're trying to add in. Using math in real life situations. What's the biggest question you've ever wanted to ask when you were in a math classroom? Why do I need to know this? Is it going to be on the exam, right? So we're really trying to focus with each skill, how does this benefit you? Why do you need to know this? And give them real life situations where they can see that it will be useful. And connect it to the various careers that they might be going into. We talked about contextualizing instruction. And we're not a giant school where we can have math for health sciences and math for engineering and 6 or 8 different math tracks. But we can really look at where are the students going in each type of class and what kind of things do they need to know. Building conceptual understanding, right? Students, students don't kind of fill in all the little gaps. We kind of have to tell them how things are connected and show them how things are connected. And so that's what we're trying to do with that. What is a fraction really? Why can't I just go 1/2 plus 2/3? And why can't I add the numerators and add the denominators, right? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? If you don't know what a fraction is. So really trying to think about what does it mean and try to make connections between the things they know and the new things that they're learning. Reducing repetition is another big thing. Traditionally, the math curriculum has been, what do we say, like the Rio Grande, it's like a mile wide and it's an inch deep, too thick to drink and too thin to plow, whatever. That's been the thing about the math curriculum. We teach them everything every semester. So we've really tried to focus each class on a few topics, and so they can go into depth. They can really understand, okay, this is the tool I'm using, and these are the things I can apply it to. John, if I get too slow, just kind of give me the, okay. So we looked at what students were doing, so we collaborated with folks across the campus. We researched best practices. We worked with faculty learning communities, which is something we're going to continue to do, and that's been a really great opportunity for all the faculty to work together and share their ideas. I think I already talked about really looking at the objectives, setting the objectives, and organizing them into courses, all of which came to the curriculum committee last year. And so that's what we've done over the last year or so. And then this year, we are leaving behind the old pathway. Looks kind of complicated. It looks very vertical. And that was one of the things we wanted to do away with. So let's look at the new pathway instead. All right. So we eliminated our lowest level class, which was Math 100. And some students with placement scores where it's appropriate are taking the pre-algebra class with a lab. Lots of hands-on time, lots of work on conceptual understanding, lots of applications. And then from there they can go to basic algebra. I think it's important to keep in mind when you're thinking about pathways is that once students finish pre-algebra, they have the option of taking business math, which is another class that has been radically redesigned. I haven't been super involved in it, but some fabulous people, Ed Warden and Pi Luna, have done amazing work with that class. There's a new textbook. They're really, again, really applied to student life. It's about personal finance and it's about small business finance. And they can take that after they've done Math 101. That'll fulfill math requirements for a lot of Associate of Applied Arts, Associate of Applied Science type of degrees. Otherwise, they have to go to Math 102, good old basic algebra. And from there, this is another thing that we're doing with pathways. They have the option after basic algebra of going to Math 119, which is our quantitative reasoning class. This is a class that serves a lot of students who are not science majors. It is consisting of primarily an intro to statistics and an understanding of the difference between linear and exponential growth through an exploration of personal finance. So these are both things that are really driven home to students. They're things that are really important as part of your daily life. They're citizenship skills, and this meets the requirement for, I don't know, I'm thinking it's about 25 or more degrees here at Santa Fe Community College. This is real college level math, folks, and it gives a shorter pathway to a lot of students. So it's really something to consider, to understand, and as we work in developmental, we're also trying to keep that class in our sights and prepare students for it, right? So I spend a lot of time on curriculum committee. All you folks who go to that meeting know, going, can we use Math 119 for this degree? Can we? Because I think when it's appropriate, it's appropriate. And then if they go through Math 109, if they want to reach this trio of classes, Prob and Stat, big for your health science majors, and college algebra for the STEM people. So we've flattened it a little bit. It's important to figure out where students want to be and point them on the right track. We don't want to assume that college algebra is what everybody needs. Right? When we were at one of the statewide meetings, we saw a guy from the Dana Center speak. And the thing he said is, we've turned the idea that algebra is for everyone into an idea that students will study algebra forever. And so we really want to get algebra for the right people in the right way. All right, the last thing we're doing, and this is an ongoing project that Shalimar Krebs is working on, is we're looking at doing a Get Going Faster lab class, which will be available for folks who have good, solid math background, but are a little rusty. This is a good choice for them. It'll be a combination of online learning, lecture, activities, tutoring, and it will be taking everybody from wherever they turn out to begin to where they need to go. They'll have an opportunity to retest and maybe accelerate their progress in that way. So that's another alternative. Students are different, they need different stuff. So we want to make sure that we have options and that students are directed to the right ones. That is the end of the show. Do you have, should we take questions or?
Questions? Anybody got questions? Anybody want to take algebra?
Anybody want to take quantitative reasoning? Come on, it's fun.
I want to thank all the math faculty for working on this. I think this is a great example of what we need to do in some other areas. The students that we're working with today are certainly different from the students that we had before. And let's see if I can get this back on. There we go. Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me now? All right. I'll open the floor to questions. I got one question that was emailed to me, if there's not any other questions to come up. Okay. So this is from an adjunct faculty member. It says, at one time, the proposed version of Policy 3-6 included a provision for paying adjunct faculty for service on committees. This specific provision does not appear to have made it into the final approved version of the policy. There is a section of the policy that addresses serving as an officer on certain specified committees, as well as faculty senate, but I can't find anything on active membership on college committees. It is in the policy. It is in Section G. It is a part of Section G that says adjunct faculty may be asked to provide additional non-teaching service and will be compensated by the college on an hourly basis. And so it is in there. We have started the process. The adjunct faculty who are officers in faculty senate this year are getting paid at the same rate of release time as the full-time faculty get release time. And then we're still working on putting together the PANs, and we all know what PANs are here, to pay them for their committee work. So we're still working through a few steps of the process, but we did budget $20,000 this year to be able to pay adjunct faculty for doing college service type work since they only get paid for teaching their class. So that is an important component, and we are getting that started. So if you hear from any adjunct faculty, it is still in the policy. It's just not worded the way they wanted it to be, I would think. Yeah.
I've been hearing from adjunct faculty around this issue. Do you have any timeline as to when it'll be finalized?
When Margaret returns on Monday, one of the things I've written down and emailed her about is we've got to work up the process for doing the PANs for the other work that people are on. We've already done it for the people who are getting the release time for serving on Faculty Senate. So, but I don't think we may have done a few, but we haven't done all the ones for the people who are serving on committees. And we need to get that started. We're still got to figure out whether we're just going to actually pay them on an hourly basis based upon some type of timesheet, or if we're going to pay them a stipend at the end of the semester based upon the number of hours that they participated. It's kind of, you know, it'd be easier to pay on a stipend basis at the end of the semester if that worked out, because it's so small if you do 2 hours this week and 1 hour this week. But we have to figure that one out.
So as a committee chair, we should be electing careful attendance?
We should, yes. So that's why it's important to have the attendance and to have it in the minutes, and that'll be kind of the backup. I'd rather do that than having to do timesheets. It just complicates it a little bit. So anyway, but we'll work those kinks out and get that up and going. But blame it on Margaret taking vacation. Okay. You can tell her I said that too. Okay. Any other questions?
Review our department budgets, because ours looks like it's impartial. It's not put together yet. We're missing like 3 faculty. We're missing supply monies in certain departments.
So most of the budgets have been, we had to do a little translation of moving things around with the reorganizational structure we did in the budgeting process. So we need to look at those. We need to make sure that people are being charged to the right place. So if you have some full-time faculty that aren't showing up in your expenditures, let Amy know about that. We need to get that fixed, and the budget will follow. Most of you should, in Exhibit 10, which is where instructional programs are, most of those should be correct. So we'll just have to go back and look at some of that. So, okay. But I need some specifics for us to go look at. We don't need to talk about them in here, but yeah.
There was another question asked yesterday at curriculum committee. We started to talk about your request to bring suggestions about budget requests for next year.
Right.
And I was asked if we were going to have to go through that process. We went
No.
through. No.
No. The process we put together last year, which we also had a learning curve in, which we came up with ways to simplify it, we would use again, but only if we thought we were going to have a lot of new dollars. There's just no sense in putting people through a whole lot of work if we don't have a whole lot of money to reallocate around. Some of the concepts will be part of the decision-making process, but kind of want to see what people want to do. But yeah, that was a lot of work, and as it turned out, we didn't have that new money we thought we had. So, yeah. So, but we will be getting into the budget process. Most likely, we will start with this year's budget, and then we will either add to or subtract from, depending upon what some of the priorities are and what the wishes of the board. Ultimately, it's the board's decision as to what priorities and what assumptions they want to make, and they have to approve that budget. But you know, we do know that as we've moved around and kind of reorganized the departmental structure, we may not have everybody and every supply and expense budget in the right place, and so we have to move some of those around. I don't anticipate getting much new funding from the legislature this year. There is some new dollars coming to the state, but that's all based upon the price of oil being an average of $58 a barrel, and it's been running about 36. Every dollar of price change in a barrel of oil is $6 million to the state budget. So right now it's running almost $20 under what they budgeted. Now they budgeted an average of $58, and that could change over time. But I really am concerned that the new dollars they think they might have are gonna, it's like every year. In August, it looks like there's a lot of new dollars. By January, it looks like there's a few new dollars. By the time the legislative session is over, there are no new dollars. And I'm afraid that's going to be the same case this year. I do anticipate that we might get a little increased funding for the legislature because I still think our performance measures are a little higher than many of the other colleges in the state. And so it's a very small part of our budget is based upon performance funding. But we got some this past year. We got just over $100,000 this past year. Doesn't go very far, but every little bit helps. So we'll see. We have put in 4 new requests for either new or expanded funding through the Research and Public Service Projects, RPSP. Research and Public Service Projects. Those hearings will be happening on October 8th and 9th. They're actually going to take place at the Higher Education Center here. So everybody in the state is coming in to present. They're going to get to see our new HEC, maybe a few of them that are done via GoToMeeting. But we've asked for an increased amount of funding for automotive. We got some last year. We've asked for some increased funding for greenhouse management. We got some last year. We asked for a slight increase in the nursing expansion dollars. And then we've asked for some new dollars for this Filmmakers Academy that Monique worked on last year that almost got funding in the legislature but didn't quite get there. So those are the 4 areas that we're asking for either new and or expanded funding for program-specific funds. So, good. Colleen?
I've heard that we're going to apply for Title V again, and that there might be some process leading up to that. Can you say anything about that?
So we are going to, we hope to apply for a Title V. We are eligible to apply for a Title V. So we are going to go through a process to get ideas from around the campus and we've heard from some people already. Yash, I don't know if you want to say anything about the process, but speak to my tie.
Speak to your tie. So one of the things we're hoping to do is to open it up to the entire campus. We're thinking about first of all, allowing people to access forums if they want to, but really we want to go to different groups and have a focus groups and say, hey, what do you want? What do you want to do? And then we're hoping to have a campus-wide discussion where we could come together as a community and say, okay, this is what we want to do as an entire campus that's going to really help our students be successful. So we're hoping to do a really inclusive process and use a number of different ways to gather input, not just within the campus, but also from external, from our community partners.
Thank you. So we're kind of excited about the possibility of doing almost like a half-day professional development type activity that we might have some focus groups before and after, but where we pull everybody together. We think this is even an opportunity to address the interdepartmental communications feedback that we got in the NOAA Levitt survey. If we get faculty and staff from all over the campus in the same room together, we do some breakout sessions. We may break into, groups of faculty and staff, and then come back and work and report out. We think it'd be a way to let everybody learn what we're all doing and what we're thinking about doing. And so we're hoping to do that. We're going to have to pick a date fairly soon, and can't promise it, but I think we're going to include lunch for everybody. And for faculty who are teaching at those times, we're going to see if we can figure out a way to let full-time faculty who would like to attend get a substitute and pay a substitute for that day. So we're working on, we've got to do this fairly soon because we really need to make a decision by Thanksgiving time as to what the focus of our application would be. And then we have to spend time writing it, and it's due in March, am I right? Yep. March, okay. Okay, great. Any other questions on that or anything else? Okay. So we're going to have a busy fall. We always have a busy fall. We always have a busy spring. We had a busy summer. So it's always busy. It's always busy. So anyway. All right. Well, if there's no more questions, thanks everybody for coming. And